There are so many infantry units in Bannerlord, and to be honest, they are all usable, but some sit far above the others in the rankings. For this video, I will talk about T5 Shield Infantry. The infantry that has two-handed weapons I classify as shock infantry, and I've covered them in a separate video you can find in the card above, if I remember to put it there. For those of you who just wanted the short answer, it's the Sturgeon Heavy Spearmen. They are tough, have the tools to get the job done, and the armour to keep them alive long enough to do it. On top of that, en masse, they render archers and horse archers pretty much useless. Watch my infantry run only on nightly plays if you want some examples, just not episode 31. That one kind of went sideways. So for those of you that aren't going to take me at my word and want to know my thinking as to why I believe the Sturgeon Heavy Spearmen is the best infantry in the game, let me talk you through my method. So first of all, we have to take a look at their weapons, specifically their one-handed weapons. These ones are the ones that are going to get the most use in close quarters, such as storming walls or standing in square formations like you can see on the screen currently. When we look at weapons, you look at a war sword. The long war sword is what these Sturgeon Heavy Spearmen get. Now this sword has a very large hit area, so when it strikes it tends to connect and it tends to register a hit. If we look at something that the Battalion Oathsworn carries, which is a one-handed bearded axe and they don't get an option of anything else, you'll see that the area to hit is much smaller, which means this weapon gets chamber blocked a lot, so it hits the edge of a shield or a wall or something else and doesn't register the hit. You have to hit it right on cue. Now I personally use axes because of their anti-shield for my character, but that's because of my ability to range it properly and get the strikes landing exactly where they need to land. The AI is dumb. They will always get right up close to the enemy and they will fight them toe to toe, and in that situation axes get chamber blocked a lot. The same happens with the Sturgeon Heavy Axeman and his Veteran Warrior's axe. As you can see on screen, this has got an even smaller hit area. You have to be very precise with these weapons for them to work properly. Unfortunately, the AI is not precise with these weapons and will often flounder and not really be that effective in close combat. So for that reason, the Sturgeon Heavy Axeman and the Battalion Oathsworn are out of the running for the top infantry. Next out is the Battalion Wildling. Now these guys are in a weird place because they're skirmish infantry, so they get two lots of javelins. The issue with these guys is that they're kind of lost to their purpose. If you want a ranged unit, you could take a Fane Champion. They're better equipped and have more ammo and can hit from further away with their longbows. As an infantry, they have a subpar shield and the lowest combined armor value of all infantry, not to mention no spear. That takes us down to 5. The next two on the chopping block are the Khazate Darkan and the Aserai Veteran Infantry. Both of these units, it's really sad what happened to them because they're both let down by the same thing. They have mid-table armor and really crap shields. If we look up this lineup here, you can see all the shields side by side and you can see the coverage that they give you. We go from one extreme to the other. So if you look at the Valadian Sergeant, you can see that his shield covers his head, most of his body, his legs. He's pretty much well covered. And then you look at the Khazate Darkan, and for some reason, despite having huge wicker shields all the way through their upgrade path, they switched them out to these small cavalry shields at tier 5. This nerfs them unbelievably. They have a brilliant sword, they have a brilliant spear, they have decent armor, they have decent skills, but this shield leaves them open to being shot in the legs, shot in the head, and shot from the sides. They cannot form an effective shield wall or a square. They just can't. It's impossible. And this unfortunately takes them out of the running. Now the Aserai Veteran Infantry, if you've watched my other channel, Nightly Plays, and you've seen the Aserai playthrough I did, I use these extensively. Their shields are okay. The problem with their shields is they have very low hit points, which means after a certain amount of pounding, they just go down, then you start getting chewed up. So when you're against other cultures that don't have great infantry, you are okay. But when you're up against cultures that do have good infantry, such as the Valandians and the Empire and the Sturgians, your infantry will get chewed up very, very quickly. So you need to be careful about who you're fighting with them. And for that reason, that's where they're out at this step too. If both of these units got better shields that gave them better coverage, they would ultimately be better overall. The Legionary is next, and much like the last two, it's one thing that lets this troop down. Again, they have great armor, they have a great shield, they have a great sword, but for some reason, in one of the patches previously, they gave them throwing weapons, they gave them javelins, and that made them very, very effective. And that's why that upgrade path, you see that they have javelins at a point, and then at T5, it switches out to a pilum. Now, a pilum is a one-shot throwing weapon or a short pole arm. So it's not good at either of those jobs. So this just leaves it in a really weird space where without a spear, they're not very good at dealing with horses, and horses are very common in this game. So without the spear, the infantry is not very good at dealing with horses and they will get run down. Also, their shields, they tend to be on the smaller side, but they can still form a decent shield wall. So for that reason, that's why they're out. Without a spear, there's just others that are better than them. We're left with the Valadian Sergeant and the Sturgian Heavy Spearman. Both have good shields, good spears, but the Sergeant has a couple of issues. Firstly, its armour value is a whole 30 points lower than the Spearman. The Sergeant's one-handed and polearm skill are also lower than the Spearman. And finally, the Spearman can only have a long war sword, whereas the Sergeant can be spawned with either an axe, which we've already said is poor and for the reasons why, and then their final benefit for the Spearman is their stupidly large shields. They are much bigger than everybody else's and also have more hit points. On top of that, when you put them in a shield wall or a shield square, the second line of shields will put their shields up to stop arrows from raining down from above. They are the only shields to do this. I have no idea why this mechanic is not shared amongst the other infantry troops, it just isn't. So if you look at this image here, you can see clearly that the front line of shieldmen are standing tightly together. The next two lines put their shields up to prevent things being thrown over the first line. This mechanic alone makes them much more survivable versus archers. There's a couple of situations where I've stared down the face of over 100 to 150 horse archers, Khazate horse archers, including Khan's Guard, and just waited for them to run out of ammunition. And then when they got in close to try and finish us off, we absolutely murdered them because they just cannot penetrate that wall of shields. There is no other infantry unit in the game that can pull this off for that one mechanic's reason. So for that reason, I believe the Sturgian Heavy Spearman is the best spearman in the game. It's got some of the best armor in the game, the best shield and shield mechanics in the game. It's got a very reliable spear, a very reliable weapon, and they have very high skill ceilings to be able to use them as well. Pair them up with a decent captain and you've got a killing force that cannot be matched. Thanks for watching my video, guys. If you disagree with me or you've got an alternate view, please leave it in the comments below. And with that, I shall see you in the next one.